Welcome to the National Security Hour. I'm Ed Huglin, your host for today. On with me today is Dr. Li-Meng Yan as we discuss the CCP's suppression of religion, like all communist countries, and how this is part of their unrestricted warfare. China's religious persecution and unrestricted warfare is our focus today. In this episode, we'll provide a strategic perspective, assessments, analysis, and insights to provide a deeper understanding of the importance of unrestricted warfare and how the CCP uses ideology, religion, and issues as ways to fulfill their strategy. Now, this is part of an ongoing series and critical discussion between myself and Dr. Yan on cognitive warfare. A quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn is worth reading here because it's very appropriate given this topic. He stated, "Within the philosophical system of Marx and Lenin, and at the heart of their psychology, hatred of God is the principal driving force, more fundamental than all their political and economic pretensions. Militant atheism is not merely incidental or marginal to the communist policy. It is not a side effect, but the central pivot. To achieve its diabolical ends, communism needs to control a population devoid of a religious and national feeling, and this entails the destruction of faith and nationhood. Communists proclaim both of these objectives openly, and just as openly go about carrying them out." Now, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, of course, a very well-known dissident from the former Soviet Union, and someone, if you haven't heard from him before or haven't read his Gulag Archipelago or other materials, you should go back and read it. Now, there's another organization, the Victims of Communists Memorial Foundation. And for almost 30 years, this organization has been educating all ages about the horrors of communism, and they have out right now a new curriculum with 33 chapters and 10 sections. And this, in the first section, the introduction to communism, I wanted to quote from a few excerpts in chapter 3. They say, "Most Americans believe in God, and a majority observe some form of religious or spiritual practice. Communism, theoretically, ideologically, and historically, opposes God and all forms of religion. From the time of Karl Marx to today, communism is based on the abolition of religion. In 1844, Marx wrote, 'Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of the heartless world, and the soul of the soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people.' Marx compared religion with opium because he believed that religion, like a drug, provides at best temporary relief from pain and suffering. For Marx, Karl Marx, a man created religion to survive life's hardships. Lenin then expanded Marxism with the argument that all religions is a tool used by the bourgeois to repress the working class. Rather than wait for the creation of a communist society to make religion unnecessary, as Marx believed, Lenin would actively seek to destroy it. The policy has served as the foundation for decades of religious persecution in the Soviet Union and the rest of the communist world. Today, we're going to get Dr. Yan's perspective as we discuss the following three main questions. First, why do communist countries persecute those who have religious beliefs? Second, is the CCP committing genocide against those who practice Falun Gong? And third, how does religious persecution tie into the unrestricted warfare? And Dr. Yan, welcome. Let's start with the first question. Why do communists, from your perspective, persecute those who have religious beliefs?
Hi, sir. Thank you for having me again. Yeah, as you have already mentioned, communism from the beginning is opposite to the religion, especially when we talk about Christian and Catholic. So we talk about what God tells us through Bibles, and we talk about we learn that we have the nature of human rights, and like the great country like the America was founded based on what God taught us, and you have the Constitution, and you make sure, guarantee that human rights, democracy, freedom should be protected. However, for communism, all of these should be abandoned. should be eliminated because communism, they require for the violence. They are using the clandestine organization, using all the legal ways and telling the most fancy words. But indeed, they just try to take over all the power in the world, and they have to establish their own regime. And their regime we have seen from Soviet Union, we have seen from Vietnam, Cambodia before. We also have seen it still on in China, and they are very anti-human. So in this case, if you accept what the religion tell you, and if you know that you have the human rights, if you pursue freedom, then from the essential way, you're already at the opposite side of the communism. And you cannot accept their ideology because I learned communism from the child in school. This is compulsory. And we have to remember their doctrines. And they all teach you there is no God. Based on this priority is how they can further brainwash you in every aspect. So that's a fundamental thing. That's why they need to suppress people.
Okay, no, thank you very much for that input. So you coming from China, I have a few questions here related to that to get your inside perspective, because like myself, many Americans and others listeners here in the world probably haven't visited China, right? A lot of people don't get out of their hometown. So in 2015, a Gallup poll found that the number of convinced atheists in China to be 61%. But from your perspective, growing up in China, how did they even talk about religion? Did they condemn religion, or was it just a topic that was verboten?
So that's a very good question. In China, when we really want to talk about religion, you can talk in certain level. What I mean is before I leave China, recently, especially in these several years, Xi Jinping has made more strict policies to suppress this kind of conversation even. However, when I was young, when I grew up, you can talk, but that is just kind of you are judge something which is not part of your life, like how you talk about someone else's life. But religion is never something into the family life, especially in majority of the area in China, except for like in Tibet, in Xinjiang, in West China, there are some parts they still have they are Muslims. So that's different. CCP tried to control the religion and go through religion to control that. But for majority of Chinese people, especially Han, the biggest race. So what our education is that first, God never exists. There is no God. And so all the things Bible or other things tell you are like the fairy tales. And what you need to learn is, Chairman Mao already said, human must beat the God. And human always definitely can win the nature. And also you need to know, there is no God, but your lives and all your life, everything belongs to you are given by Chinese Communist Party. Without party, without anything, party is superior about everything. So that's why they are totally opposite to religion, to the God. They use themselves to replace this concept. And this is, I would say, this is another type of the serocracy, but it's not that typical.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because what you're saying basically is the state is their God, and Chinese and communist states make the state as their God. When I was in the former Soviet Union, religious people were persecuted there as well. And the Soviet KGB infiltrated many of the Orthodox churches there, and had many Orthodox church priests and stuff like that compromised. And so within China, I don't believe they have many churches at all. From your perspective, have you ever seen a church within any of the provinces where you were at, or are there many, very few, or what?
There are churches, and the churches are more like the museum or more like the tour place for you. And so I live in Qingdao, which is a city open to the world even before World War One. So Russia, Japan, and Germany, they all stay in Qingdao and build their own churches or their own buildings. So we have a very beautiful Catholic church in Qingdao, which is a landmark. However, I grew up there. I can tell you, even my grandma is a Catholic. She only has been into the church maybe within 10 times. Mm-hmm. That has to be a special event, and then government allow you to go in. You have to show that you're Catholic and whatever. It's not easy. And for me, I never had chance to go in because I'm not Catholic registered in China. So you're not allowed to go in, and you can just check outside. And another big church made of stone in Guangzhou, another top city in China, I've been there. So it is open for the tours, but it doesn't give you the knowledge of Bibles or something. Still, when we talk to the Bible, talk to the God, they will manage to lead you to, oh, this is fairy tale and CCP is superior to that.
Oh, very interesting. So there's a July article in the Washington Times about China's religious persecution. And what I found interesting here in this discussion, it's always interesting to get a perspective from someone who's actually been there, right? As you come to America, you learn about probably a number of things that were told to you as falsehoods there, but you also realize there's some truth in certain aspects of the narrative that was probably painted. But what I find interesting in this article here is that Robert Knight, Washington Times, says that China's 10-year plan to rewrite the Bible and the Quran and other religious texts to conform to communist dogma. What he points out here is that the scholars in China are refashioning the Old and New Testaments into communist-friendly versions that will reflect the theology of Mao and Xi rather than on the Holy Spirit of God. Okay, the Bible was written by 44 authors over a period of 1,500 years. But what he's saying in this article is that China is preparing to flood its people with false scriptures, which basically, again, replaces the state in place of God. Now, what I find interesting here, he said China has an estimated 100 million Christians. Now, from 1 billion people, that's 10%. That's a significant number of potential Christians there. And that within this, you have Falun Gong, the Uyghurs, the Tibetan, the Muslims, and Christians. From your perspective, how are the Uyghurs and the Falun Gong members viewed within China itself when you were there?
Okay, so first, according to Chinese Communist Party's policies, when we talk about, I don't know whether we really have 100 million Chinese people Christian. To be honest, when I grew up, people around me, there are barely any Christian. And the thing is, the data in China, we usually don't believe it. And what we are talking about is in China, religion can be two parts. One part is legal religion. The others, they call all of them cult. So that means they don't admit it. So from our propaganda, from the education we are given in the school and in the media, so the legal ones are the ones leading by we have a bureau. It's called Bureau of I think it's called administration, a state administration of religious affairs, And this administration is directly controlled by United Front Work Department. So that gives you all the idea, the nature of this bureau, because United Front Work is to use all the power to work with people who are not CCP members in the society to let them serve for CCP's political interests. So religions here is used to be a tool for CCP to reinforce its all the ruling. So one hand, they eliminate the part doesn't really listen to them, or maybe you just have a little bit thing that cannot satisfy CCP. Like in Xinjiang, some people are allowed to go to the mosque, but not all. there are certain people, especially you are in a very red family, or you are well controlled, well dominated by CCP, then you can go to mosque, because this can present an image to the world. See, we still have freedom of religion.
Yes, yes.
But majority of people, if you dare to talk about the bad sides of CCP, or you learn too much from Quran, or too much not what CCP want you to learn, then you are sent to the re-education camp, like Clark. So that happened to all this type of religious group. And for CCP, they have rewrite not only Bible or Quran, they also made the law that in China, when we talk about the legal part, legal Catholic, legal Christian, legal Buddhism, all this, they have their own, like for example, Catholic have the Catholic bishop conference, and these are bishops selected by CCP. They learned the CCP series, she thoughts, more thoughts, every day in the school, and then well trained, so they know how to combine it into the Bible when they give you all this doctrine.